Welcome to Discover Barnstable, the official podcast of the town of Barnstable, a podcast where you can meet the people who steward the programs and services for the town of Barnstable that connects us all to our quality of life. We invite you to join the conversation as we navigate municipal government and our community pathways to help you discover Barnstable. I'm Liz Hartsgrove, and today I am joined with my fellow co-host and tour guide, Lynn Poyot. Hi, Lynn.
Hello, Liz.
How are you?
Well, and you?
I'm great. I'm very excited about today's topic, and today we're going to dive into DPW 101 with Dan Santos, who is the Public Works Director. Dan has been director of Barnstable Public Works since 2013. He has also served on the Barnstable Airport Commission, including as its chairman from 2008 to 2012. Dan is a former naval officer and has spent nearly his entire 40-year career in public service. He holds a bachelor's degree in civil engineering from the University of Rhode Island and a master's degree in public administration from Suffolk University, and is currently a PhD student at in public policy at UMass Boston. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
We're glad you're here.
No, I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to getting a primer on DPW.
Yeah.
DPW is huge. It's, I think, third after the schools and the police department as far as the general fund programs. And I know that you're going to be explaining about general fund and enterprise programs. So if you can give us how Public Works fits into the municipal structure.
Okay. Is that my first question?
That's your first question.
Yes.
Well, Public Works is very important to any community because every community has infrastructure, and infrastructure is all of the buildings and grounds and the built environment. And so we're charged with maintaining and operating that. So it's very important. And that's why it's so big. In a town like Barnstable, which is 64 square miles, it's an enormous town with lots of roads and bridges and marinas and sidewalks and recreation areas and cemeteries. So there's thousands of different parcels and pieces of infrastructure that we have to maintain and operate. So we're important. I'd like to think that the town really couldn't operate without Public Works. And I did fail to mention water supply and solid waste trash removal or disposal of trash and wastewater treatment at our wastewater treatment plant.
So the last three that you just mentioned are actually enterprise funds. And what you were talking about earlier, the highway structures and grounds, those fall under the general fund.
Yes, we have 6 divisions under the department, and 3 are general funded and 3 are enterprise accounts where we have to raise revenue in order to meet the needs for our expenses. And the 3 general fund accounts include administrative and technical support. This is the administration of Public Works where I work, as well as engineering, surveying, and financial management. And we have the highway division, which is in charge of highways, roads, bridges, sidewalks, roadside mowing, litter pickup, and structures and grounds division, which deals with all of the buildings and the parks and grounds and cemeteries. Again, those are the general fund divisions. And our enterprise divisions include water supply, where we supply drinking water for the village of Hyannis and Hyannisport and a little bit in Centerville. So we operate wells where we pump groundwater and treat it and deliver it to our customers. We have the Water Pollution Control Division, which treats sewage that's generated currently from Hyannis and Barnstable Village, where we have sewer collection. And then thirdly, we have the Solid Waste Division, which operates the transfer station and recycling center, where residents that choose to can buy an annual sticker and dispose of their household trash through there, rather than contracting with a private enterprise.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, and especially when you consider the number of miles of road in the town of Barnstable and the different needs in the four seasons. We're the fourth largest road system in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
That's right.
behind Boston, Springfield, and Worcester.
I think so. I'm not sure on the road system miles. We have 450 miles of roads, both public and private. 1,100 roads of our 1,800 are private, which is a very unique situation to Cape Cod. You get off the Cape, there are fewer and fewer private roads. Some communities have no private roads. It's just something that's developed here over time. But it presents a challenge to us because we really can't spend public funds on private property, private roads, except those things that the state legislature has approved in the past, and that's snow plowing and emergency maintenance so that public safety vehicles can access the road. Other than that, we don't spend money to maintain private roads, and that's challenging. And people move here from off Cape, and they don't understand this. So they think, well, what do you mean you don't? We own the road. But we have programs that can help residents to fix their road if they need to, for regular maintenance, and to repave if that needs to be done.
That's a great service to actually offer people because, as you said, it can be complex in moving here and or relocating from one town versus another and not understanding that you might not have been aware that that road is private, and then you're like kind of not stuck, but you're just like, oh, where do I go? And then offering that is that's a really good service to provide people.
Yeah, in addition to providing this, so we do the engineering and the planning, and we hire the contractors, and the residents basically just have to pay for it. And even in that, they're allowed to pay through their tax bill. They can either pay a lump sum, or they can pay over 20 years at a very low interest rate.
Yeah.
So it is a good program, and a lot of roads in the community do take advantage of it.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because other communities, they don't offer that type of program. So that's a really good one.
And I was introduced to that in 1995 when my parents helped to spearhead the taking of, or making Straightway from a private to a public road, because it went between West Main Street and Craigville Beach Road. And it was used as a path through by not just the residents that live off that road. And in the recent move of my parents, I found the file because they had to go get everybody that lived on the road, the main road, and the roads that were serviced by it to sign off on that, because it would be affecting what their taxes were. So, but the town does, a tremendous amount as it relates to roads. The DPW created a snow and ice brochure that set expectations. So the recent storms that we had, people knew what they could expect for service from DPW. And I think that we received a lot of positive feedback from people saying that it was nice to know what those expectations were, so that they knew when to contact or sit back and let things proceed.
Sure, information is valuable all the time. The more we can help people understand what we do, the better that they'll understand it and know what the expectations are. And snow and ice is a unique thing. Everything we do, I could spend a lot of time on each aspect of what we do. And snow and ice removal obviously is a challenge depending on the kind of weather we get. Every storm is different. I mean, each and every one is different, and responding to it is more art than science, really. We have to look at weather forecasts, and we start looking weeks ahead to see what's coming. Start talking to our people about how to respond and how to get ready. We look at what's happening on the ground. We look at models, various models for weather, and then we have to decide how we're going to pre-treat, if we are, with using salt to keep the snow from sticking, and when we'll do that, and when we'll bring the crews in, and when we'll bring the contractors in, and at what point do you start plowing or not. And response may vary. If there's going to be a lot of wind, with the snow. So we have to respond one way. Or if it's going to be really cold after the snow, then that's going to create icy conditions, so we have to salt afterwards. But if it's going to rain afterwards and be warm, we don't have to be as worried about that, because we'll let Mother Nature take care of finishing up the roads by cars going over it, and the warmth of the sun will evaporate the snow and the water. So there's a lot that goes into it.
It is.
And it's an all hands on deck kind of thing, and DPW hires from within frequently, so some of your division supervisors previously served in highway, and their expertise in that, so someone from Structures and Grounds or the transfer station would be on site during a winter event. But, we did talk about this as being DPW 101, and we know that there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to return in the future.
Sure.
Yeah, but the flip side, so you fast forward 6 months to the spring and the summer, a lot of departments that, we are, a year-round community with seasonal bumps, and obviously the summer is a seasonal bump, a big seasonal bump. And so DPW, a lot of departments depend on DPW to help them get ready for the season. So can you talk a little bit about that, Dan? Like, is Parks and Rec and even Sandy Neck and any other types of departments that rely on you?
Well, we spend a lot of time in the spring. Actually, all year we're busy on one thing or another. So we just talked about snow and ice. That's our winter focus. And then in the spring, we got to start getting the town ready for people that are going to be outside, and tourists and visitors. And we do that by a lot of grounds work. So, cleaning up all of our recreation areas, our parks, our medians. We actually grow our own flowers out at Mosswood, and getting our flower beds maintained. We put docks in for the marinas, and tree pruning and things like that. So there's lots of things that we do in preparation for the season. Then during the summer, we'll spend our time responding to needs, things that break. If there's going to be a storm, we have to pull in the banners on Main Street and along the walkways that we put out in the spring.
Yeah.
Those things we have to be careful at. Flags alone, we have dozens of American flags that we have to raise and lower depending on whether there's half-mast been ordered by the governor or the president, or if there's going to be bad weather. So these are just little things that add up.
Really nobody thinks about, but
Right.
somebody puts that, makes it happen.
And in the fall, we're doing cleanup, putting all those things away and pulling the docks in and doing the final cleanup on the grounds. And then we're into the winter, being ready for snow and ice again.
And one of the things that you mentioned the word Mosswood. Well, Mosswood is a cemetery, and Structures and Grounds has cemeteries it's a program underneath the Structures and Grounds division. So that's another element that is busy all year round.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. We have, I think, 14 cemeteries, and we have some that are not active. They're historic, and there's no room to inter any more individuals. But we have a number that are active, and we operate an interment program so people can have their loved ones buried there. Traditionally, we also have a columbarium at the Mosswood Cemetery where we can inter ashes. That's something that's people doing more and more these days with interring ashes at cemeteries, either buried like a typical casket, or the columbarium is an above ground structure with they're called niches. It looks like basically if you went to a post office with all the post office boxes, it's very similar to that. And they label them for the dates, who was there.
Right,
the
and I think that
remains.
they can hold multiple ones. It
Yeah.
was actually funded through the Trust Fund Advisory Committee through, I think it was the Kirkman Fund that
Right.
funded the creation of the columbarium.
And then the new thing, and we're working on this, is green burials. A lot of people they're wanting to leave less of a footprint ecologically, so they don't want to have a vault, a concrete vault, and then a casket. And so they're looking at different ways of burial with just the materials that, that can break down, like cloth and wood or fabric. And we've just drafted rules and regulations that will address that. So there's a lot of interest in that. So like anything else, we kind of roll with the way the culture is moving and try to accommodate different needs.
So that takes a lot of strategic planning and getting ready in advance. So how do you plan for things, whether they're small or large projects, Dan? How do you actually, how do you plan, identify, and then move into the implementation of it? I think, DPW probably requests more capital projects than any other department when it's time during the springtime to go appear before the council for approval for capital projects. So can you talk a little bit about how your department, because you're full of very experienced, very talented team members that can really help other departments identify and plan accordingly. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. There's, projects range from small maintenance type things to building buildings. And so typically the smaller projects are more maintenance related. So we will do those things in-house with our crews. So we have carpenters and plumbers and electricians and HVAC specialists, and they're really there to maintain or do minor repairs, but we'll do small projects. And we generally look at about $50,000 of value as the difference between a small project and a large or capital project, which we get funded specifically. So the funds are identified for that project. Those smaller maintenance things and repair things come out of our annual budget. They're not necessarily targeted. They come up during the year. And the large projects come from all sorts of areas. I mean, as infrastructure professionals, we know how buildings have to be maintained and roads and all these other things that we're responsible for. So we have annual programs of just looking and evaluating. So we have a program for our roads where every 3 years we evaluate the condition of every road and we give it a rating. And so based on that kind of information, we can determine what roads need certain types of maintenance at what point. We do the same thing for buildings. We have software programs and companies that come in and help us look at the condition of the physical plan of a building, the heating system, the plumbing, the electrical, and help us determine when we might need to make improvements or replacement and help estimate those things. We also get requests from departments themselves that we don't necessarily have expertise, but for example, recreation department has lots of needs, and they will say, well, we need a new playground, or the baseball field needs to be redone here at this location. So we'll take that over and start the planning and turn that into a project. But the identification of the project came from the users or the department. And we also get projects that are identified by individual citizens, sometimes through their counselor. Sidewalks are a good example. There's a need for a sidewalk. For example, we're working on a sidewalk on East Bay Road in Osterville. We've just started that. And that came from citizen interest. And in each village, there are the civic associations and the groups in each village that meet, and they identify needs, and we'll bring them to our attention. So we'll turn those into projects. And I think what's important for the public to know is we have hundreds of projects kind of in the pipeline, and it's hundreds of millions of dollars, and there's no way we could fund them all. So we have to annually prioritize, and the entire town's senior management comes together and helps us to prioritize projects, and then we develop an annual budget for these large capital projects to really address the needs. And relative to priorities, we're looking at things that are required by law, or that might be unsafe or dangerous, or in fear that might collapse or fail. So we want to take care of those needs first. So it's an interesting process. It's really our kind of our backlog, and that helps. We do it for a 5-year period, and that helps financial planners to know what's coming down the road and what kind of funds we might need for improvements, during that 5-year period. So there's no real surprises every year.
Can you take a minute, and this is another one that's going to be another program sometime in the future, but can you talk about the major project that the DPW is working on right now?
Sure. You're probably referring to the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan.
Correct.
Talk about long-term planning.
Yeah. Well, and Barnstable isn't alone. Every town on the Cape is really required, every town in Massachusetts, but it's important on the Cape because our natural resources are such that they're affected and impacted by, wastewater disposal, most of which is septic systems on the Cape. And septic systems can put nitrogen and phosphorus, so nutrients, into the soil, which eventually makes it into the groundwater and has a deleterious effect on ponds and our coastal estuaries. So the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan is intended to identify all of these areas that may be impacted. So it's the estuaries, the ponds, the drinking water, whatever impacts come from septic disposal on the Cape. And we've done that. We've gone through that analysis. We've been doing this for years and years. This program has been in place from the Department of Environmental Protection for decades. But since 2015, really in earnest, we've begun to evaluate this with the aim of coming up with a plan and a program to address these issues and to try to solve the decades of nutrients that have been going into the groundwater. So we put together a plan which ultimately will sewer about 12,000 homes in the town of Barnstable over a 30-year period. So this plan is 3 10-year periods where we will be expanding our sewer collection system and pump station, that whole network. Our wastewater treatment plant will be upgraded, and it's possible that we'll be doing a number of innovative and alternative types of treatment methods in the western part of town where it might be very costly to bring sewers because it's so far and we don't necessarily need that many that we could do with alternative systems. So this plan includes all that, and the town council has been extremely supportive since we've done this work. They've to date funded around $70 million in projects. So this is more than just a plan. We are implementing this plan as of the last 2 years. The plan was approved by the Cape Cod Commission, who has a hand in the approval, by the State Department of Environmental Protection, and also the State Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act office. They've all approved our plan, and so we are underway. We're constructing our sewer expansion in Centerville at the moment, and we will be going in many other areas of the town. Something else I wanted to mention in this, which we did a little differently here in Barnstable, is we did this entire plan in-house.
Thank you for saying that, because I was going to bring that up next.
Yeah,
So
talk
within
about
Public Works, so we have
it's amazing.
We have a very talented group of engineers that we brought on board over the last, well, since I've been here, 9 years. But really starting heavily in 2015. So we brought people in that were in consulting firms. I was in the consulting business for a while, and my assistant and town engineer. So we know how to do this. And we felt that we could save the town an awful lot of money by doing what's typically done by consulting firms in-house, have more flexibility, save money, and do it quicker, which is exactly what happened. And also we're taking that to the next level by doing a lot of the conceptual design work, which would normally be done by consultants, doing that in-house. And so we're saving a lot of money and having much more control over the product. And then ultimately, these conceptual designs will go to consulting firms to do the final plans and specs based on what we've selected as the means and methods of a project. So that's exciting, but it means a significant increase in our staff over the next several years, bringing on designers and AutoCAD operators and engineers.
Senior project managers. You've got a lot of number of people whose boots are on the ground. They're talking to people as their road is being affected.
Right, we have inspectors that meet with the individuals along the routes, but also are keeping an eye on the construction contractors, because we have to hire that out, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we'll be doing that for 30 years.
That the depth and breadth of this is just mind-boggling. But one of the wonderful things that with this big project is that there is really a lot of information, and I think DPW and the town in general has done a lot to make sure that communication and education of these projects are available to the public, as well as making staff available for questions. And these are really educated, really knowledgeable people who are designing the work and putting, like Lynn said, boots to the ground type of thing. So how can the public actually find more information about these types of projects, not just the CWMP, but other projects? I know the town even has an online database to look at the trajectory or the pattern or like the progress of projects, correct?
Right. Well, there's a number of ways. We have the town's website also has a water resources section on the town's website where all this information on water quality and the water comprehensive wastewater management plan is included, and I'm sure at some point you'll provide those links so that people can find those things, but they can call us. We will meet with any groups, any individuals. If a homeowner has a question about sewer, then we put them in touch with our engineers. We have been working with communications experts and having meetings and putting out brochures. We mail information to individuals that are directly impacted by our plans. We also visit them. We'll knock on doors if we have to. So we understand it's very important that we communicate and people understand what's going on, and we're always looking for new ways to improve that. So if people have ideas, we'd love to hear them.
Sounds about right to me. Yeah, that's a lot, and that actually is really, whatever way that a person enjoys or needs to communicate and get information, it sounds like you've got it under control. And working with also Lynn and her communications team is also, again, another department working interdepartmentally on just achieving and getting the word out and making sure that the services are top notch for our community. I think that's really important. So, Lynn, I think we're ready for our rapid fire.
All right. So I've been torn between two questions, and I think I'm going to go with this one.
So it's rapid fire, and that it's multiple questions?
No, it's just going to be one.
It's just going to be one. It's one fire.
It's one,
okay.
yeah.
Not multiple.
Or actually, maybe I will ask two this time.
Ooh, all right.
So if your high school did superlatives, what would you be most likely to?
Most likely to be an engineer.
That's a good one.
Well, it's true. It's just always been my...
Your passion.
Yeah, what I always...
All right, and then I'll give you what I think might be an easy one.
Okay.
When you have free time, what do you like to do?
Oh, in my free time, I make furniture.
Beautiful furniture.
Well, thank you.
And-
And I've done that
yeah.
for 40 years, so I just...
Grandfather
it's a real
clocks
passion.
and all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Amazing.
Very good.
doing that.
So we're going to ask that you join us next week when we invite Sandy Neck Park Manager Nina Coleman and Sandy Neck Operations Supervisor Donna Bragg to talk about Sandy Neck. What is Sandy Neck? Where is it? What is important about it and unique? And what recreational activities are available to residents and others throughout the year?
Yeah. Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Lynn, and thank you, listeners, for spending time with us and listening to Discover Barnstable, the official podcast of the town of Barnstable. We hope that you have found a new understanding of how your municipal government works to protect, engage, and enact for you and our community as a whole. Be sure to drop us a line at podcast@town.barnstable.gov. barnstable.ma.us and let us know what you would like to learn next. Till next time, go discover Barnstable.